Welcome back, and as we'll continue on our study with the North Carolina Driver's Handbook, once again, make sure you wrote down the code for the previous video you watched so that you can get credit for it. As we were finishing up on page 14, North Carolina requires obviously all students to stay in school. If you drop out prior to your 18th birthday, you will lose your license. Okay, so it's pretty important that you do. Also, if you expel for any reason, I think it's more than 10 days, you could lose your license. So make sure you has 10 days within a 12-month period. Make sure your license, you keep your cool at school. Sometimes that's hard for some of us. And keep your grades up, because if you're disciplined by way of expelled from school for 10 days or more, the suspension of your license or your permit will go for a year. So make sure that you keep that under control. The next pages, which would look similar to like these, 16 through 21. Okay, I'm not going to go over this. This is basically a lot of times maybe you can't find a particular document or something like that, and you need proof of something, and you don't have it, but yet you have something else. So go back to these pages if for some reason you're missing some documents or something like that. Maybe you have some more that you can alternate. I'll give you kind of what I'm talking about. I had a student 3 years ago. He was born in Russia. For some reason or another, there again, I don't know any of the circumstances. Russia would not give up the birth certificate that would be required for him to get his license. Okay. However, he did have a passport. He was born in Russia. He was adopted family here in North Carolina for ever since he was a little infant. So he's lived here all of his life in North Carolina. But he was able to use his passport instead of his license. Instead of his birth certificate. So it worked for him. So just go back to these pages. Some of you, I would bet the majority of you don't have the 5 documents that I just requested earlier, and you should be perfectly fine. Okay, so it's no big deal. All right, we're going to turn to 26. Halfway down, the duration or renewal of your license. 18 years old to 65 is every 8 years. 66 through however old is 5 years. Back a good number of years ago, it used to be every 4 years, and that was a pretty big pain to try to go back and forth and remember. And I'm sure this policy, by having 8 years instead of 4, has lessened the crowds up at the DMV, so that the employees can serve the community a lot better. Okay, when you change your name or your address, if you're in North Carolina or whatever, you have 60 days to change it. Okay. The next page on 27 looks similar to this. It's some fees and stuff of that nature. I'm not requiring you to remember every single fee, okay, except for Class C and permit and things like that. Maybe it'd be a good thing to know. There's a few things I want to mention. There's one called a driving clinic fee. That's a fee if you lose your license for having too many points. I think it's a 1-day class, maybe 2. I'm pretty sure it's 1. Where you go to take this class and have some points. It's similar to a tiny version of a driver's ed, I would imagine. As a driver myself, I have never experienced that, so I'm not sure how that works exactly. 28. North Carolina has some other services: voter registration, organ card, organ donor plan, selective service. Gentlemen, 18 to 25, you must be a part of the selective service. I know some of you don't approve of it, and that's your business. But let me explain something. If you do not, all right, then you do not get your license. I've had students before refuse to sign. Not certain. As an American, you're free to do that, but just understand you're not getting your license. Sex offenders obviously would have to register. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to skip ahead a little bit. See if I can get to it. In the next little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about signs and categories and things like that. So if you would, turn to page 78. And it looks similar to this, and if you got the handbook. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the next few minutes on these signs, and most of these signs are pretty much, you'll see these signs in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever you're at in the United States, and some cases overseas. But anyway, North Carolina has what's called 3 categories. Okay. Excuse me. Regulatory signs. Those signs are non-negotiable. Okay. Those signs, you have to do what it says. It's the law. You must obey the law. Okay. Like stop sign. Stop. Okay. And no U-turn. Well, you can't turn. You make a U-turn. Those are mandatory signs. Okay. Those are non-negotiable. You cannot negotiate them. Okay. Warning signs, or some people call them caution signs. I think sometimes I call them more caution signs than I do warning. But to me, they're the same thing. Excuse me again. Those signs look similar to these. These are regulatory. These are some of the caution signs. Okay. So those tell you pending danger. Slippery when wet. Stop sign coming up. Pedestrian crossing. So forth and so on. Okay. Then North Carolina has, which is the next page, which is about right here. Okay. And my finger down. Those are called guide signs or informational signs. Okay. Those are not pretty much tell you where you're going, what interstate you're on, what highway you're on. Is there a hospital nearby? Is there a historical event? Are you going in the right direction on the interstate? What exit number you need? And they're all different signs. Brown signs are usually historical places, state parks, things like that. Green signs are pretty much exit signs. They're kind of tell you how far things are. Maybe one city to another city, things like that. If you go this direction on this particular road. Blue signs are service oriented. Gas stations, hospitals, restaurants, hotels, anything that could be a rest stop or something like that. So brown signs, historical, resident, blue signs, service oriented, green signs kind of tell you where you're at. Then the next page, 81, which is this one here, know all these signs. Okay, these are regulatory signs, just like I mentioned just a few minutes ago. Okay, know these signs. Okay, know them well. Okay, I'm not going to go over them, but I can tell you if you go when you're taking your sign test, you'll be kind of the examiner will be asking you what's the sign for A or what's the sign for B or so forth and so on. And if you go brain dead, you're nervous, you're excited, things like that, I always just tell the students to tell the examiner what that sign's saying or doing. If you forget the correct terminology for that sign, just tell them what the sign's doing. That way you get credit for that sign. Then the next page, 82, know these as well. Okay? These are all your caution, warning signs. Not all of them, but a good majority of them. Okay? Know these once again. Low shoulder, soft shoulder down toward the bottom. That's the edge of the pavement. If it's low, there's a difference in height. If it's soft, it might be gravel, it might be grass, it might be anything of that nature. So that's what shoulder means. It's the edge of the road. Okay, sometimes it's really low. Country roads a lot of times have really low shoulders. Then soft shoulder could be grass, mud, sand, you name it. It's a lot different. But those are the two types of shoulders. Okay. You will need to know your hand signs for like bicycles or motorcycles or things like that, which is the next page. Okay. So what else? So now, if we will, turn to 45, or where the school bus signs. Okay. All right, so school buses, construction sites, passing, going around like UPS trucks or FedEx trucks, delivery trucks, mail trucks, things like that. And of course, if you're behind a school bus, I always tell the students to prepare for the worst on the school bus. That way you're ready if something were to happen. You're ready to be proactive and not have to worry about hitting a small child or getting off the school bus or something of that nature. Obviously, that would devastate you, devastate the family, your family, their family. It's just not worth it. So always prepare for the worst. Didn't say it was going to happen, but from time to time, regardless of what state you're in, you always hear of some bad tragedy with the school bus. And it's heart-wrenching. It's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. Just don't be a part of that statistic, okay? So don't be cool around the school bus. Be super cautious. And that's just the kind of way I see it. Okay, when, especially when you're getting out of school buses are leaving at the same time you're leaving. Just be aware of it. It's better for you to get home safely and the children to get home safely as well. All right, so down at the bottom, it's hard to see, I know. If it's a 2-lane road, everyone stops, both lanes, okay? That's what that's basically telling you. If it's a 1-lane road, or 2-lane road, excuse me, with a center turn lane, then all 3 lanes stop. If it's a 4-lane road, all 4 lanes stop, okay, with no barrier or no median, okay. And then if you have a 4-lane road with a barrier, sometimes these 4-lane roads have the cables that run through them, okay. With those, obviously you can continue driving. If it's a concrete barrier, if it's grass, median, or whatever. If it's a 4-lane road with a center turn lane, left center turn lane, where my finger is, the people behind obviously stop. I meant to say, I'm sorry, on the 4-lane with the barrier in the middle, the people behind the school bus, both lanes would have to stop that were behind the school bus. I failed to mention that earlier. If it's a 4-lane road with center left turn lane, the 2 lanes behind the bus need to stop, and then the other 3 lanes going in opposite directions do not. Okay. So just work sites too. Uh, we're in a big work, traffic, road construction type places here in North Carolina, and I'm sure most of this country is always working on roads. Be really cautious around them as well. All right, page 32 and 33 looks similar to these pages. This is just an example of some of the point system that you have. You have kind of 2 point systems. You have an insurance point system and a license point system. They're totally different. I don't know much about the insurance point system, but this could kind of give you an idea. If you were pulled over for whatever reason, these are how many points would be be added to your license. And then keep in mind, if you get a speeding ticket, most likely your insurance is going to go up because whatever insurance company you have, they will tack on more points, and that's, keep in mind, it's for 3 years most of the time. Right. So anyway, here in North Carolina, as I mentioned, you have 12 points. You can only if you get 12 points and we accumulate in 1 year, license could be suspended. It's depending on your circumstance. 12 points could be really fast. 12, some of you may never get 12 points, and that's great. Okay, when you get 7 points, the DMV says, hey, slow up a little bit. You could take this driver improvement clinic that I just mentioned on the costs, the I think it's $65 cost, and get some points deducted up, try to help you out some. Okay. But anyway, if you'll look at some of the points here, passing a stop school bus. Remember, I just said be super careful. That's 5 points. So if you're at 7 points and you get a passing stop school bus on your record, well, guess what? You'll get your license suspended. Reckless driving, aggressive driving and reckless driving. There's 1 point difference. Aggressive is 5. Reckless is 4. The main difference, in the way I kind of see it, is the aggressive driving is you're trying to hurt somebody. You're angry. You're trying to either hurt them or kill them or something. I mean, you hear of road rage a lot, and we'll talk a lot about road rage as the course progresses. But you're trying to hurt them. I mean, it's beyond funny now. You're trying to hurt someone. Okay, reckless driving. You still could try to hurt somebody. It's not that it's less, but reckless driving could be, could be like you caused the accident because you failed to signal. You weren't trying to hurt someone. You just was reckless. Or if you tried to merge into a space that you didn't look. Maybe you didn't look and there's a car beside and you caused the accident. That's reckless driving. You're not trying to hurt somebody, but you did, unfortunately. Hit and run, you get 4 points. Following too closely, tailgating, 4 points. Driving on the wrong side of the road, 4 points. Illegal passing, 4 points. Failure to yield right away to the pedestrian, 4 points. Potentially be. Pedestrians always have right away. Even when they jaywalk, you have to be careful. If you're going to some of these older towns and smaller towns, have parking on the sides of the main road, main street. Those, a lot of times people just open the car door up and just get out of the car and walk wherever that. They're not looking for the mid-block crosswalk. They're not looking for the crosswalk. They're so used to traffic being yielding to them and hardly much traffic at all to start with. They don't care. They're not paying attention. So it's your responsibility still. Okay. Failure to bicycle, motorcycle, scooter, running stop sign, rolling stop, or some people call them a California roll, is still not stopping at a stop sign. We all do it. I know it, and I've seen a lot of people do it. But And legally, and here in North Carolina, you can get a ticket for failing the stop, meaning it's three points on your license. Okay. Running a stop sign, 3 points as I just mentioned. Speeding in excess of 55. If it's 55 and you're doing 65 and you get pulled, you could get a ticket. Failure to yield right away, 3 points. Running through a red light, which is extremely dangerous. The most dangerous part of the road is any intersection. There's so much going on, especially these bigger intersections, bigger cities and things like that that you may experience. Drove drive through. There's just so much going on. So don't run. Driving without a license or license expired. There again, they could tack on some more points. I've had students before didn't have a license. They were practicing driving, and they're practicing, in my opinion, too much as far as like venturing way out. If they would have got a ticket, they would have got 3 points on their license, and they didn't even have their license yet. So be careful of that. And I'm not saying don't practice. Hear me out with that. Practice driving as much as you can, but do it in a controlled environment. They did not. The parents, I know, I've had two sets of families, I should say, that their 14-year-old didn't have a permit, didn't have driver's ed, drive their kids, their other siblings in the car with them to school every day, and they were 14. That's against the law. If she would have got pulled by the police, there've been some pretty hefty consequences. Safety zone, driving through a safety zone, driving too fast, things like that, 3 points. Liability insurance, 3 points. Here in North Carolina, everyone's supposed to have liability insurance. If for some reason you do not, you get pulled, you could get a ticket for that. We'll talk about insurance as we go along through the course. Failure to report an accident. If you see an accident, you may call 911, something like that. And we'll talk about the Good Samaritan law and some other laws that are incorporated in with your license that you need to know about. Passing school zone, three points. Failure to put a child in a restraining order, a restraining seat, or a car seat or seat belt, 2 points. All of the moving violations, 2 points, and littering, 1 point. Okay, and then the next part of the page 33, and we're not going to go over. It's the commercial driver's license type thing. Just look at the first one or two, or one, passing stop school bus, that's 8 points. You could lose your license really quickly on that. Okay, so thank you so much for your attention. We'll continue on. Today's the code for this particular video is BKC 1987. Thank you very much.